Hello everybody. Um, just letting people who have cared about me and have checked in on me know that I'm safe. I have proper temporary housing right now, so I'm good. I'm not going to get too personal about it though. At least on here. But I had some thinking, and I thought to myself, and I self dialogued, and whatever that's the right word to use. Um, I wanted to talk about the difference between or somehow some people think certain things are childhood phases, and then what they're really going to be as like an adult. So a lot of people who have seen my story about the dolls will think like, well, gee, what happened that was so bad to make you be like this? And it's like that's because a lot of the times when that stuff is, I've seen it and brought up on TV, but very rarely it's made fun of. People who attach to inanimate objects, or they're made fun of, or they're it's stigmatized as, oh, it's not right, you're sad, and then at the end of the story it'll be like, well, that was the case. No, not all the time. Some people are different, so that can be the situation. Just like anybody could be bad. Doesn't matter what color you are. Doesn't matter what size you are. Anybody could be good or bad. Like just like there's good teachers, there's crappy teachers, there's good cops, there's crappy cops, stuff like that. Um, so I wanted to let everybody know that growing up, I was adopted. You all are pretty much aware of that who follow me, and they were an older couple. Um, when I started preschool, I went to preschool, okay, and I noticed, I took a very big attachment to stuffed animals. I never was a big fan of dolls when I was a kid because I wasn't really too girly back then. I was kind of a tomboy, but I was more like dolls didn't really. I didn't play with dolls. I played with stuffed animals, but it's not because I thought they were creepy or this or that. It wasn't my thing. It had nothing to do with. But I used to attach myself to stuffed animals. And I noticed that, even I had a friend who should remain nameless, but he was in my preschool, and he was a really sweet little boy. And I was, we were both the same age and stuff like that. And I didn't know anything about, gay or this or that, but like, I noticed he was different. And that's what I liked about him, right? Because, and even growing up through elementary school and still knowing him and being close friends with him like that, he would be very like flamboyant, and I don't have a problem with that. Well, I haven't talked to him in years now, but I remember when I was maybe a teenage, about a teenage age, I got reconnected to him online, and then then we lost contact. I forgot what happened, and nothing bad happened between me and him, but I think I got into Facebook or something like that, and I forgot. Or maybe I was scared to reconnect with him, and I just kind of left it alone. But because people's personalities change as they get older, your thought process, everything. But I do remember, he posted something, and he said, I don't know if maybe it was somebody giving him a hard time about something, but he was saying something, and at the end of the post, he had said, "I might like boys, so what?" And it clicked with me, and all the memories came back, and everything added up. And I'm not saying that if you're a guy and you have a feminine side to you that you're gay. I'm not going to stereotype that, but I always felt that, and I was like, in my head when I saw that, I was like, I kind of always knew. And there's nothing wrong with that. He is who he is. I haven't talked to him in years though. But so back to what I was saying was, then I was at the shelter, and there was somebody there who had a daughter, remain nameless for privacy reasons, or who has a daughter still, obviously. And she said that she really liked dance. And she said she's devoted to it. She loves it. And it makes me think about the girls from Dance Moms, how some of them were devoted to it, and some of them were like, they seemed iffy when like they had to go or something like that to dance or whatever. Um, I've noticed, or I've kind of learned, or maybe this is my personal what I think, but I believe it could be considered a fact. Um, A lot of times when a kid is devoted to something or they have a certain lifestyle or a certain interest or whatever it is, and it carries out, from, because anything could be a phase, but it carries out from, you know, 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, 10 years old, and now they're almost a teenager and they're still like me. I was still wanting dolls. I still liked all the horror dolls. I still, nobody said this to me in my family because my family, some of my family members always thought the ones that raised me were like, you're gonna grow up and you're gonna turn around and be like, oh, can you believe I like zombies? And then years later, that family member that was still, well, not now, that family member that I had been living with turned around and said, I brought that up, and she said, yeah, I thought that, but you're still doing it, so it is who you are. I've noticed that. So what I want to put out there too is, no matter what it is, whether it's, bad or good, because if it's bad, then, obviously anything that they like, if it's not harmful, it's okay. But like, if you have like, my father had concerns about me liking the horror dolls. Like the media would put theories out there like, well, she likes all this. There's a lot. That's another topic we'll talk about another time. I know the difference between something that's not okay and something, you know what I mean. But like, I'll just use an example. Like, well, before I say that, I wanted to say always listen to your kids, no matter what age they are, and that's with anything. If your child tells you, I'm scared because when I go to this person, I feel like this and that, and nobody really listened to what I had to say when I was a kid because I was growing up to be taught children are to be seen and not heard, are to be seen and not heard. I don't agree with that. Always listen to your kids, even if it's something that is scary, like no matter what it is. So if you think that you're concerned about, well, their mindset, look into it. Don't automatically go off judging. This is just from my experience as a kid growing up. Don't automatically get mad. Don't If you think that they're gonna grow up and it's gonna be bad, like whatever, if it's something harmful, not talking about anything I brought up, I'm talking about like, if they do have a fascination with, something that seems very odd, like just how would I put it? So nobody can twist my words like the media has done. Um, for example, one of the creators of my dolls, he talked about how he grew up as a monster kid. Um, Meaning not a bad monster, but he loved those movies. He loved Frankenstein. He loved all this stuff, and some people got concerned. My parents would get concerned, and they'd be like, "Well, she's very much into it, and all this zombies and death." And if you feel that you're concerned for your child's mindset, I agree. Take them somewhere where professional and see if this is an interest or if this is something that they're disturbed. So always keep that mindset, and also pay attention to, okay, they're aware that this is a movie. They know that doing this is bad, not to copy that in the movie. So you know what I mean? Stuff like that. But always listen to your kids, like I said, like, or if it's something that's good and that makes them happy and is not harmful, because some kids don't understand the difference between bad and good because they're kids. You have to teach them. That's the whole point of being a parent. You teach your kids, this is wrong. Let's say, let me use a good example. Like, if your kid really likes soccer, or, you know, isn't really into books with school, but they've always devoted their time to singing. There have been parents out there, even in movies that I've seen that are based on true stories, where parents would be like, "Oh, you're gonna go into that business? That's not, you ain't gonna get nothing. You ain't gonna," and then they end up being successful, making zombie dolls, or making motorcycles, or singing, or dancing, or if it's something like that, listen to them and respect that. And if they get older and it's a phase and they get out of it, it is what it is. But always treat them, because they're people too. Um, so yeah, but that's what I mean by, a lot of people think that I've had this, like, as I got older, yes, I did have trauma. I lost my mother, stuff like that. My adopted mother. But as a small child, like 6, 7, 8, I can't remember anything that was that bad, because my mind wasn't developed to make me think like, oh, this isn't true. I'm not treated fairly here. Nobody's listening to me. You just thought it was like, you kind of got over it, because children are, they're happy. So it's like I was more happier then, and had less, and again, the illness, with bipolar and stuff, that wasn't anything in my mind. or anything that they saw, because I was a kid. I wasn't like, you couldn't tell. I was still young. So, but like, it's, how do I explain it? But like, somebody would say something mean to me, and I noticed I didn't hold it onto and take it to heart as, I was sensitive. He yelled at me, but I wouldn't really like dwell on it like I am as an adult now, like where it's like, oh, I've noticed that this happens all the time, or this, that, and then it brings the depression on. I was more happier. And there was nothing in my life. Yeah, I didn't really have a lot of friends growing up, but I mean, I noticed that when I did have a good human friend, I had one in fifth grade. She should remain nameless, but she was a very good friend of mine. I always wanted to bring like my doll that looked like me. It was like a knockoff of an American Girl doll, except they called them twin dolls, and they made them to, you ordered them to look like your kid. So it had the curly hair, it had the skin color, everything, and I named her Jasmine. That was my doll's name, that I had when I was a little girl. My adopted mom had bought. I don't have her anymore, but I was very, and I always like, attach myself to her, and I'd be like, oh, well, and I still liked Chucky. I mean, I already knew about Chucky from there, but I used to like make Jasmine and Chucky friends. You know what I mean? That's just how my mindset worked. Uh, but every time I went to go hang out with that friend that was, another female that I had met, she had moved there to that school when I was in fifth grade, and I was like, well, let me bring Jasmine, and she was fine with it. And I said, you have your doll, but a lot of kids weren't as devoted to their dolls or their stuffed animals like I was, like, in a friendship way and everything. I was different. And sometimes I feel like that now, because a lot of people who are reborn parents, like with dolls and stuff, or there are some out there that will say, I don't believe they have souls, I do it just for comfort. So I can't really relate to them either. You know what I mean? But there's certain groups that it has nothing to do with dolls, but it has something to do with spirituality and maybe something that they have or that I can relate to. And it's so weird how life works like that, because you would think somebody with somebody that has the same mindset as, oh, this is like I have Molly here with me right now, my doll. You would think that'd be like, oh, look, you have Molly as your kid, and they have this little reborn, and I might not relate to them like you think I would, because they don't have the same frame of belief or mindset. So, but back to what I was saying is, she never had a problem with me bringing Jasmine or anything like that my friend in fifth grade. But I always, like, even with human people who I've tried to bond with even now, but even as a kid, I'd still try to involve my dolls or my stuffed animals, whether it was when I was younger or whether it's now. And as a child, I don't remember seeing anything really bad that really upset me, or besides when I was 11 and Betty and my adopted mother passed away. But I don't remember, like, I mean, yeah, my family was all old fashioned, so all the adults were from the older generation. They pop me in the mouth and say, knock it off, or they'd spank me and say, you're being bad. I'm gonna get the spoon or whatever. But I never was, beaten to a pulp, or like, that's never happened. I never saw a real dead body until my adopted mother passed. And then I went to the wake, but she was all, she wasn't like, you know what I mean? She had makeup on. She wore her suit that she liked. But I was older. I was almost a teenager. And I understood that mom was gone and mom wasn't coming back. But nothing from my early childhood that made me so bad. And that's what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? So this video kind of portrays more like about me, and about how, I know it might seem like I'm jumping over a little bit, but if I could put it together as with the dolls, there's nothing that happened that bad in my life until I was older. But when I was a kid, I was happy. Unless I got yelled at, then I cry. But all kids get yelled at. Well, some parents are calmer than others. But back to the point is, whether it's a kid's personality or lifestyle, or or there's just certain things about them that that they're going to be different. It jumps to different things. I'm not saying if a boy likes flowers, it means they're automatically gay. I'm not saying that, but not like with that example too. I wanted to point that out too. How when a kid becomes a teenager and then they say, "Oh, I'm gay," blah blah blah. I noticed that a lot. So there are some parents that would be like, "I kind of always felt that." Like they just got that vibe, and it could be wrong. It could be right. Keep in mind, not everybody's feelings are always right. Like vibes that they get. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm trying to say is like, or not even with that, because that's very because when you're a kid, you're not a teenager. You're not going to prom. You're not. So that's. But I'm talking about with like, this little girl loves to play the guitar, and she doesn't. Then she grows up and she's a guitar player. You know what I mean? But that's stuff that people are more accepting of because that's more quote normal in society. But if it's not harmful or you feel that there's a concern, always look into it if you feel it's concerning, if it's something different. But if you know that there's, the intention behind it is like with my dolls, like my intention is not just Halloween, it's also accept, like everybody has facial flaws or body flaws, scars, whatever, and I love my dolls the way they are. You know what I mean? So basically, if you feel that your kid is different and more of in a way, like an interest way, like if they like aliens, I think aliens are cool. It could be a phase, it could be not. Anything could be a phase, but you know, don't take it. Just don't take anything like like But if you feel that you need more of this to seek somebody that could figure it out, and you don't understand something, fine. My dad finally learned that as I got older. That they just make you happy. I was worried that he used to tell me I was worried if you played with them kind of dolls, you were gonna grow up to be like this. And I just, I have somebody that makes my dolls. I'll say this: he's in the business, so this is kind of like a little shout out to him because I love his work. He's the guy that owns Distortions Props, and I saw him make a video and say, growing up, people thought it was crazy, and because a lot of people listen, they watch too much TV. Oh, there's a serial killer that used to like horror movies all the time, but you can't stereotype every little or everything that you see on TV with somebody. You know what I mean? Unless they take it way too far, where you know, you would know, you know what I mean? But like if it's like, oh no, I just want to be in the Halloween business, or like, oh no, I see them as like friendly monsters, not serial killers, but like with Beauty and the Beast. The Beast was a monster. Everybody saw him as a monster. And no, I'm not talking about serial killers like Hitler, none of that. I'm not talking about that. No. I'm talking about like friendly monsters as in like the fantasy ones like Gremlins or ghouls and you have to admit there's certain movies that are for kids that they befriend the monsters, like, and the monster turns good. I've seen that. Lilo and Stitch. Stitch was supposed to be a monster. The Beast in Beauty and the Beast was seen as mean, and Belle calmed him. I used to see that when I had my Chucky doll. I kind of went through a phase with Chucky being a friend, but Chucky has his own little character. I got him go, whatever, I let that go. I still like the movie and stuff, but I used to picture it like, when I was a little girl, I used to be like, no, Chucky's like, I made him good. But my father didn't understand. My father thought that I thought that killing and was cool, and it concerned him. But as I got older, he understood, and he said, "I know what you mean now. Why you love them? Your zombie dolls, not Chuck, because Chucky was kind of he still wasn't, he still didn't like Chucky. But my dad would just be like, your zombie dolls. I understand that you love them for who they are, And it also goes back to when that may relate to when I was a child. I'm always defending my zombie dolls, like, oh, well, they're too scary for this stuff. I always turn around and I say, but this and that. Goes back to when I was a child with my dad. He was the only one that really tried to defend me growing up, and he would be like, because if I wasn't having a bad behavior, but I was just being too silly or too, oh, leave her alone. You know what I mean? She's not doing it. Well, people are gonna think she's weird, Charlie, and Charlie would say, oh, don't worry about it. She is who she. You know what I mean? He defended me a lot because people looked at me differently, not because of the way I looked, because I seem like a regular human being, but with my little different personality, and I don't mean having a temper tantrum. I mean, like, how do I say it? I mean, like, just being quirky, like making jokes that some kids would be like, that's not funny, like, but nothing bad, kind of like jokes like something that as people stereotype, something that boys would think is funny, like farting or stuff like that. And he would be like, she's not doing anything, like something small like that, nothing like crude like that a kid shouldn't be saying, but something like, oh, farting or stuff like that. And and then people would be like, don't be talking, and my dad would be like, she's a kid, So I defend my dolls like my father defended me. I believe all this love I have in me comes from my father. He may have left physically, but what he had left behind for me in a good way, the love and all that, it stayed with me. You know, he's still alive in my heart and stuff like that. So, um, I hope when I spoke that this video, I didn't like bounce from topic to topic. I really try not to. Please forgive me. I have ADHD. So sometimes I like talk here, talk there, but I'm trying to relate to something, so I'll talk about something else, and then I lose my train of thought. So yeah, that's all I gotta say. Have a nice day. Bye.